Well, hey guys, how you doing today? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thanks for being here. Well, yep, it's been a little while since the last video. I was kind of busy with the History channel. Hope you got to see that episode In Search Of, Season 2, Episode 7, hosted by Zach Quinto, the guy who plays the young Spock on some of the new Star Trek episodes. Yeah, we did cover a lot of stuff in that show on the History channel, so if you get a chance to watch it, I think it plays a little later outside of the United States. But the short answer to the question is yes, I do believe crop circles do create very interesting and inexplicable energetic changes on their environment for a variety of reasons. So I do go out with those instruments into the field when we're studying crop circles to see if we can get electromagnetic disturbances, radio frequency, EMF, stuff like that. So that's exactly what we do when we're out there. Now, I wanted to talk today a little bit about where we were with the previous video that I recorded about the Jacques Vallee hypothesis that when we're talking about what we perceive as UFOs and ETs, maybe they're not really ETs after all. There's some sort of intelligence on the planet that's presenting itself as ET. And we kind of presented that as a possibility in the last video. So I just wanted to continue with that a little bit, because in that video I said, is it something that's presenting itself as ET, or are we dealing with parallel realities so that we're just perceiving things that are different from parallel Earth timelines that seem extraterrestrial to us just because they're kind of hard to describe, hard to understand where they're coming from, so we just say they're ET, but they're really parallel realities coming from the same space that we're in right now. Well, I came across this paper recently towards multidisciplinary SETI research. This was on Jacques Vallee's website. It's a paper that hasn't gotten a lot of attention. It's by Gary Nolan, who we know from some of his research into UFO-related subjects. Jacques Vallee, we know him, and Federico Fagin, who's also a researcher into consciousness and a computer specialist. So this is an interesting article because they argue here that SETI research, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, which is those big radio dish antennas, Arecibo and Puerto Rico and other places, where they look for signals from so-called extraterrestrials coming in electromagnetic spectrum, radio waves. So what these guys argue isn't that a little too narrow at this point? I mean, how do we even know what extraterrestrials are? They're saying here, and you can find this on Jacques Vallee's website, by the way, as I mentioned, that, we're starting from the idea of life as we know it here on Earth. Nothing wrong with that, but isn't it a little too narrow? How do we know what extraterrestrials really are like now? I mean, our own technology has evolved so much, just think in the last 100 years. I mean, my father was born before radio even existed. So things have changed that much. And every new technology we invent, as they point out here, has a shorter and shorter half-life. So that to look for extraterrestrials in just one sort of spectrum, electromagnetic waves, I mean, we might not even be using that in 100 years. Everything's going to, fiber optics and direct internet connections without going through radio waves. So shouldn't we broaden our search for extraterrestrials? What are extraterrestrials going to look like? And isn't it possible that consciousness itself, conscious beings, could have evolved to the point where they have put their consciousness and identity into something that's non-physical or into a computer form or something like that? So I think it's a really good point, and it's a good question. The sense and the definition that we have of extraterrestrials, you'll have to admit, really does come a lot from Hollywood. We tend to think of extraterrestrials, to a large degree as being like tetrapodal, like we are, 2 arms, 2 legs. And that sort of animal that we're descended from, arrived on Earth a couple 100 million years ago. And fish have been found, with sort of fins like 2 arms and 2 legs. And then I think it's pronounced Tiktaalik. It was a type of fish that gradually came ashore and its fins became arms and legs like we have, and we're descended from Tiktaalik. So this tetrapodal idea of ETs sort of being like that, but different, maybe look more reptilian or more like Greys or Pleiadians or something, whatever. That's just one form of life. And it is true that a lot of people who have encountered apparently extraterrestrials, just think of the Pascagoula encounters of Calvin Parker and Charlie Hickson, from Mississippi in the early 70s, where they're out there fishing and this kind of craft floats across and these beans float out of the craft. I mean, they were different looking, but still sort of tetrapodal. Now, maybe it's a tetrapodal. But the point is that it's likely that you and I would have those sort of encounters because we tend to perceive more easily things that are like us. So it's probably easier to remember encounters with other beings that seem like semi-human, humanoid. This is a term that's often used. Some of the encounters I described in Black Swan Ghost described either very tall spacemen-like creatures, or Peter Leather, who described this creature in a skin-tight suit, like sort of human coming out of the craft in Surrey in the 1970s in that particular account. So we do have a lot of accounts like that, but is it perhaps because we don't know what other extraterrestrial characteristics might be? And is it possible that extraterrestrials are around us right now, you and me, but we're not aware of it because it isn't taking a tetrapodal form or anything else that we normally associate with life? What would that look like? I've thought about this a lot, and it seems to me that one characteristic of extraterrestrials might just be a slightly different frequency of things that you're used to in your environment that is just a little different, but it's still so similar to reality the way we think of it that we don't notice it. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be something with a physical body that looks like us. It could be something that's just aware but different. And it could already be here now, as Buddy and I have argued on the Doc and Buddy show, Reality's Edge. It could take a fractal form. Buddy has often argued that the UFOs get smaller and smaller as they get closer to Earth and might be very miniature at this point. So all I'm saying is extraterrestrials could be right here, right now, and we might not be looking for them in the right way, or we might not know what they look like, so we wouldn't really perceive them to be extraterrestrials. It would just be things that we're used to in our ordinary reality that might seem a little bit different all of a sudden. If we looked at them, we might notice they just had other characteristics that are not typical of our objects in our ordinary reality. So something like that. So again, this is just something to think about. I'm not saying this is necessarily correct, but I think Jacques Vallee and Nolan have a really good point here, is extraterrestrial life could take a lot of different forms. SETI should be looking at lots of different ways to detect life, not just radio frequencies. And that you and I, in our everyday reality, I mean, we might be around this already, but we simply don't know, what it looks like. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you today. Let me know what you think. Agree, disagree. Put your comments in the box below. Of course, like and subscribe. Glad to have you here. And we will see you next time. Take care for now, and bye-bye.